in the house, we have a very special guest. He's also DC's finest. He's a champion of everyday people. He's also a lifelong activist. He's a Brooklyn-born kid. He is Senator Bernie Sanders. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good.
Yay, Bernie!
So we have so much stuff to ask you, and we want to make sure the voters and the viewers get involved as well. So make sure if you have a question or comment, keep them coming. Use the hashtag BET.com/blackcoffee, or I'm sorry, YouTube.com/blackcoffee. Use the hashtag BlackCoffeeLive. Make sure you talk to us right now. The hashtag BlackCoffeeLive will have your comments coming in, and we will be answering those questions throughout the show. Thank you for coming. I know this is a busy time for you.
It is, but great to be here.
Yes, you did GMA this morning.
Yes, I did.
Very nice.
Yes.
Go in there and you're out. 3 seconds, explain all the problems of the world, but maybe we'll have more time to do that.
That's the best part about Black Coffee.
We can
get to
actually discuss issues.
Yeah.
with nuance and depth, and we get to have a little bit of fun too.
Yes,
right.
yes. First, we always like to play a game with any of our guests.
God!
Yeah, but it's a fun game. It's called Pass the Aux. It's all music-based.
Right.
And so basically, we're going to give you 3 song options, and you'll look in the screen down here, and you will pick one to play, delete, or skip. And we'll get to know a little bit more about Senator Sanders and his music taste. Is that all right?
All right.
All right, let's start. Let's see what
I'm pretty scared here, let me tell you. All right.
This is high pressure stuff.
I think you
know.
go up against hard stuff every day, man.
All right,
We
let's do
got
it.
this.
Let's see what we got.
Where are we going, guys?
Play, delete, skip. Those
Okay,
are the
that's it.
options. Yeah?
Okay, so the first one is Frank Sinatra, My Funny Valentine, Stevie Wonder, Superstition, or Cardi B, I Like It. Which one are you playing, skipping?
Let's go with Stevie Wonder.
You're going to play with that.
So here's
play
the thing.
that one.
Yeah. So you have to, one of them you have to play, one of them you can skip, and the other one you have to delete from your music.
Right.
That's what makes
all
it.
right, I got to play. Oh, my God.
Well, you see the pressure just went up.
All right, well, let's skip Sinatra.
Okay.
All right.
Oh.
And then you're going to delete Cardi?
Yeah.
All right. All
I
right.
like Cardi.
We know.
Very much.
She likes you.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's go with the next one.
All right.
The next options are, okay, Whitney Houston, the greatest love of all.
You have to go further. Tony Bennett actually was up at the Apollo Theater doing a celebration on the life of Harry Belafonte. You know, I don't know if you know that Tony Bennett has been active in the civil rights movement his entire life.
Yes.
Great singer. But I love Whitney Houston. She is something special.
Yeah. So you're going to play Whitney,
Yeah.
skip Tony, because you're going to still keep him, and then delete Salt and Pepper.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Good stuff. All right, we're going to keep going to the next one. The next options are probably just a little difficult. Aretha Franklin, Think. Diana Ross and the Supremes, Stop in the Name of Love. And then ABBA,
Actually, that's a tough one.
That is a tough
When I grew up, the Supremes were very much at the top of my list. Motown sound. I think when I got married, we did it with ABBA as well.
Oh.
And Aretha Franklin is obviously great, in her own world. So let's go with Diana Ross and the Supremes.
So you're going to play Diana Ross. You're going to skip Dancing Queen and delete Aretha.
Reluctantly.
Yes.
Reluctantly. I like all those.
Dancing Queen is pretty tough to skip.
I know.
That was actually John McCain's favorite.
See, the ABBA people, they came up with song after song after song.
Right.
They were really phenomenal.
So you were a fan of the Motown sound?
Yeah, very much.
Okay. So you like Stevie, Marvin, all of them?
Yeah, and the Temptations and all those guys.
That one of the things people don't know about you is that you had a little music background, or at least like you were.
Yes, I have a unique. You talk about Aretha Franklin, the Supremes, ABBA. I, in fact, recorded the worst musical disc in the history. See, these guys are okay. They sold millions of copies. I did the worst. And it's a unique, I'm very proud of that.
That takes something.
Anybody could be Aretha Franklin, but to record my disc, what happened was I was in Mayor of Burlington, and there was a local band, and the band was really good. And I got somehow dragged into this thing, and my job was fortunately not to sing, but to kind of narrate things like "This Land Is Your Land,"
Yes.
Woody Guthrie's song. And I did it terribly.
Okay.
But it's become a sensation because people cannot believe that a singer that bad could actually record something.
I went. I didn't want to embarrass you by playing it on the show, but I went and found it.
Was I right?
I never agree with you. We agree on a lot of things, but I've never agreed with you more.
Dang, I gotta hear this.
It may be the worst thing I've ever
And
heard.
it's going to be a bestseller. Millions of copies. People cannot believe that anyone ever did a song that badly.
Oh, God. So we have another co-host who has a better agent than us because he's on vacation this week while we're working. And we wanted to bring him into the conversation. He has an actual question for you as well. So we're going to get things going with Jameer Pond.
Hey, Black Coffee fam. I know you miss me, Gia. I miss you too, Marc. I'm in beautiful St. Martin right now, but I didn't want to be without a question for President hopeful Bernie Sanders. okay? I wanted to know that a lot of people did not vote in the 2016 election because you weren't the presidential hopeful for the Democratic Party. I wanted to get your opinion on this. How did you feel about people, instead of voting for Hillary, not voting at all?
All right, I think that that was a mistake. I worked very hard. I went to, I believe, 13 states. We did rallies all over the country. I knew then what a disaster Donald Trump would be. And I did everything that I could to see that he was not elected. So we went to all the battleground states. I think we had some impact, but I worked as hard as I could. And look, in the political world, you don't always get what you want, all right? And, you know, sometimes you got to use your brain in this thing. And keeping Trump from being elected was the right thing to do.
Right.
Do you think that, in retrospect, you did enough to encourage your base? Because there's this narrative of, you know, the Bernie supporters, the Bernie bros, or whomever who, you know, didn't go across.
You know, some of that is mythology. Look, there is the assumption that everybody who voted for me would automatically vote for any Democratic candidate. According to exit polls, my memory is correct, in 2008, when Hillary Clinton ran against Barack Obama, something like 25% of her supporters ended up voting for John McCain.
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, in fact, the number who did not vote for Clinton was much less from those people who had voted for me. So it's going to happen, but, you know, I did my best to get people to vote for Clinton.
Another thing that's interesting, talking about getting people out to the polls, one of the things that AOC was saying the other day, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was saying, was that if Joe Biden were the nominee, that she's worried that it would depress voter turnout, that people wouldn't come out. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I'll tell you why, which is not to disparage Biden. We're going to win this election and defeat Trump with a large voter turnout. To have a large voter turnout, it's not just good enough to say, you know, Trump is awful, vote against Trump. You need to give people something to vote for. Most importantly, you need to get young people and working people involved in the political process.
Right.
Now, we've had some success in that. 2018, as you may know, young people voted at the highest level that they have in, I think, 70 years, but still not high enough. Older people voted much higher levels. So the question is, if you are somebody who voted for the war in Iraq, if you're somebody who voted like Joe Biden did for terrible trade agreements, which cost us millions of good-paying jobs, if you voted to deregulate Wall Street, as Joe did, if you voted for the Wall Street bailout, if you voted for the bankruptcy bill, if you are taking a kind of moderate approach, not dealing with the real issues facing poor people or working people, are you going to create that excitement where people say, you know what, I'm going out, I'm voting for that guy?
Right.
And I think that is the problem. So I think what AOC said is basically correct.
And you made a good point about the millennials who love you. I remember Feel the Burn was the biggest thing on college campuses all over the world. We have one of our makeup artists was literally about to cry when you walked in. You have energized millennials in ways that I haven't seen, and you did it without pandering to us, which I really appreciated. But why do you think you were able to really tap into the millennial base so well?
You know, it's the damnedest thing. Honest to God, people think, wow, you must have been really smart. You really figured this out. We didn't. I mean, it's not only we didn't pander. Honest to God, we never spent 5 minutes thinking, all right, how are we going to appeal to younger people? We just did what we do.
Right.
And I think the answer is two reasons. Number one, the young generation today, black, white, Latino, Asian American, whatever, is the most progressive young generation in the history of this country, okay? I come from a generation which was pretty progressive, actually. I think this generation is more anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobia, anti-xenophobia, etc. So we were tapping into the idealism of a generation that said, why not? Why can't we recreate America and have a government that works for all? But here's the second factor, is that your generation, everything being equal, unless we turn it around, and we'll talk about how we can turn it around, is going to have a lower standard of living than your parents. So it's not just idealism. You're having people out there who are leaving school deeply in debt, right?
Yes.
You're having people out there who, everything being equal, are earning in real wages, inflation accounted for wages, less money than your parents did. People who cannot afford to buy their own first home, right? Because the cost of housing is off the charts. So there are a lot of people saying, hey, this economy is supposed to be doing great. What about us?
Right.
Why are we hurting? And what Bernie is saying in terms of his issues makes sense to us.
There is a sense, obviously, that young voters were drawn to you in the last election cycle, and this time too. One of the critiques of the campaign in 2016 was that the black community didn't turn out in the way that you may have desired. Particularly, I mean, you look at South Carolina.
South Carolina was, yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough turnout for you. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, this is what I learned. And by the way, just so we get the facts right, by the end of the campaign, we were winning the young people's vote in the African American community. What happened in South Carolina, we came into South Carolina, you know what, nobody knew who I was. The truth is we did not run as good a campaign as we should have. We take responsibility for that.
In what ways, though, specifically with regard to black
Our
voters?
organization was nowhere near as strong and effective as it should be, all right? Contrast that to what we are doing right now, where we have a super organization in South Carolina. We're going to do much, much better in South Carolina. And by the way, let's not forget, here I'm running, and no one knows who I am. I'm running against Hillary Clinton, whose husband was enormously popular in the African American community, right?
Very true.
First black president, so to speak. Right.
That's what we got said.
Make sure you got your air quotes.
All right, you know, and you know, so we did badly. But I think as the campaign progressed, we did better. And I think if you look at the polling today, we are doing better. And I think we have to do better, and we will.
So what do you say to those voters who will say, well, Joe Biden is the extension of the real first black president, right? He was vice president on a campaign and an administration that we supported.
Right.
What do you say to those people?
I would say look at the issues. Look at my record, look at Joe's record, not only in the past, but look to the future. I mean, that's really what a campaign is about. You know, Barack Obama is a friend of mine. Joe Biden is a friend of mine. And so I'm not going to disparage them. But what are the issues that are out there that we have to address for the African American community, for the nation as a whole? You got approximately 40% of African American workers are working for wages lower than $15 an hour.
Right.
All right, that's disgraceful, okay? We're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour, which will have a significant impact on the African American community. We're going to make it much easier for workers to join unions, which will impact everybody, disproportionately the African American community. We're going to cancel student debt in America by putting a tax on Wall Street speculation. That will again impact everybody, disproportionately the African American community who leave school more deeply in debt. We're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. That will be a tremendous boon for the African American community. Right now people are struggling. How can I afford to go to college? We are going to do what every other major country on earth does, and that is guarantee health care to all people as a human right, which will be, you know, an unbelievable step forward.
You're talking Medicaid for all?
Medicare for all.
Medicare for all, excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely, which will be enormous for the country and for the African American community. We're going to pay attention in a way that no one has ever seen before to environmental degradation above and beyond climate change, which impacts disproportionately the African American community. Those kids in the African American community have more asthma than the population at large because what the air that they're drinking, they're breathing is often very polluted. So I would say that our agenda, which is going to fight institutional racism from one entity to the other, is an agenda that will work for the African American community.
So, student loan debt in particular, I'm interested in hearing more about. Ilhan Omar was here last week as well.
Yeah, and she and I are working together on that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Gia, you
Yeah, I was gonna ask because it's scary. Like when you think about when you leave college, the jobs, especially when I graduated in 2012, like we were still in a recession. It was scary. Can't afford things. A lot of my friends, millennials, still live at home with their parents. I just got my first spot, and I'm 28. So when can we see actual change in that area? Like if this bill actually goes through with flying colors, what does that process really look like to get student loan debt?
Within 6 months,
increased?
student debt in America will be canceled.
Wow.
For 45 million people. Now, I've been criticized a lot for this, but here's what I think. I think two things. Your generation were told, tell me if I'm wrong, you got to go to college if you want to get a decent job. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
got to go to college. So people said, okay, I got to go to college. And I come out of college, $50,000 that go to graduate school, 100. I know young doctors, $300,000, $400,000 in debt. Yeah, okay.
Easy.
All right, so they were told to do this. And then they got out of school, and just as you said, many of the jobs we're not paying them the kind of wages that they needed in order to adequately pay off this debt. So what happens? I suspect you have friends who are not getting married and having kids.
Right.
All right, they're not able to own their own home. They are living in their parents' home when they wanted to get out and, you know, start their own lives. So I think you got a generation that was mistreated unfairly. And I think what we have got to say is that given the fact that a lot of those problems were related to the Wall Street crash, which was brought about by the greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior on Wall Street. So what we are saying to Wall Street, you know, the Congress bailed you out, the Federal Reserve bailed you out. Well, you know what? It's time to help the working families and the middle class and lower income people. We're going to have a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. That's it in a nutshell.
Right.
We're going to ask them to pay a little bit more in taxes.
What's a little bit more?
A little bit more, believe me.
No, but what's a little bit more?
It's less than 0.5% on transactions, stock transactions.
Yes.
All right, they will be fine. And in fact, it has the added bonus of trying to control speculation, which is a serious problem. All right, so they're going to pay a little bit more in taxes. We're going to be able to make public colleges and universities not only tuition free, but for lower income, middle class students, debt free. Okay, and we forgive student debt. Now, people say this is a radical idea. Well, if that's a radical idea, then tell me how giving $1.5 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% in profitable corporations is not a radical idea. What people get confused about is that maybe we should use the resources of government to help the working class of this country, not just the 1%. And anytime you try to help working, oh, that's radical. You can't do it.
That's
But
where the radical talk comes in.
Helping billionaires, hey, that's what it's about. So
And the HBCUs as well.
HBCUs is right in the middle of that mix.
Yes.
Absolutely. HBCU, you asked me something what I didn't know last time around. I did not know, to be honest with you, the significance of HBCUs for the African American community. I really did not. And I didn't realize how many graduates of HBCUs go on to be professionals, doctors, and so forth, the great medical schools that are out there. I did not know that. We know it now.
Right.
That's important. I want to get back to it, but we have some viewer questions coming in for you. We have John's Progressive. It's a great name. What do you eat to have so much energy? What's the secret sauce? How do you stay engaged on the campaign trail at such a high level?
Well, in fact, it's not what you eat, it's what you don't eat. One of the problems is when you're outside eating in restaurants, you eat a lot of crap.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we're trying to control that, and I try to walk a bit. You know, mostly my exercise right now is walking. Occasionally I play basketball with my grandchildren. And I'm happy to announce that I defeated my 8-year-old grandson in basketball. It was tough, but I did defeat him.
Did he just block all his shots?
That's what I'm imagining now.
That mean.
Trying
It
to get
wasn't
around
that mean. I'm taller than him. We did around the world shooting. Kid's a great shooter, but I did beat him.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Don't tell him I said that. Though. He'll be
this energy that you have, though, I mean, it bumps up against these criticisms, whether they're fair or not, that you hear, which is the age question.
Right.
Right. And it's been posed the last election. It's certainly been posed more now.
Yeah. Well, and you know, let me knock on wood here. I've been blessed, and that's all. You never know what's going to happen with your health, my health tomorrow. I have been, thank God, blessed with good health my whole life. When I was a kid, growing up here in Brooklyn, New York, I was a long-distance runner. I was pretty good, cross-country run, a mile, a half mile. So I always had a lot of endurance, and thank God I still do. But let me just say a word about the age issue, which is an issue. I appreciate that. I think when you look at a candidate, you look at a lot of things. I mean, most importantly, what does he or she stand for, right?
Yeah.
You know, it could be a wonderful person. If they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, you know, you're not going to vote for that person, I would hope. So you got to look at the totality of a person, what their life has been about, what their record has been about, what their vision for the future is about. And I can throw in age, it's one of the components. But with age, maybe throw in experience. I was a mayor of a city for 8 years, learned something about local government, was in the House for 16 years, proud of a lot of the work we did there, and been a senator. Experience counts too. So I would just ask people to look at the totality of the candidate, and also to suggest that you well know that you've got people who are 80 or 90 who have more energy in some cases than people who are 50, right?
Yes.
So that's
Okay, fair enough. The question of reparations
good.
has been a question that has been bounced around a lot
Yes,
lately.
yes.
And I've heard a lot of candidates answer it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we always have the specificity about what we're talking
Right.
about when we say
You
reparations.
don't in many cases.
So I'm going to ask a very specific question.
Yeah.
Do you support policies that are specifically targeted to the American descendants of slavery?
Absolutely. Okay. Now, I I'm a co-sponsor along with Cory Booker, who introduced the bill, of a study about reparations. And by that, what I mean is that it is terribly important to begin to really understand and discuss the horrific impact of slavery, and we don't do that. You know, I'm fairly well educated. I went to the University of Chicago. I will tell you that I don't believe I ever took a course which talked about those issues, which talked about what happened in the South and after the Civil War and the rise of Jim Crow and all of that stuff that you know very, very well. So we need to have that thorough discussion, which the American people, I think, by and large, do not fully understand. My preferred solution is to focus on legislation that Jim Clyburn from South Carolina introduced. He called it the 10-20-30 legislation. And what he means by that is focusing a very substantial amount of federal money on distressed communities in America, which in most cases, not all, will be African-American communities, all right? So that means paying attention and rebuilding schools, making sure that the young people who are graduating high school are not falling through the cracks, that they have the job training or the ability to go to college, making sure that there is decent housing, make sure that the environment in those communities is adequate, is good, making sure that everybody has health care. So the answer is that right now we have massive racial disparities in this country. In a nation with all kinds of disparities, where 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America, which is insane unto itself, then you got racial disparities where white families on average will own 10 times more wealth than a black family. Unbelievably, you have infant mortality rates 2.5 times more in the black community than in the white community.
Let me pause you for 1 second, because the 10-20-30 you described, you said helps distressed communities, which are disproportionately black.
Yes.
That's not the same as a policy that's directly targeted exclusively to black people.
Not exclusively, but predominantly.
So I'm going to return to the initial question, which is, do you support policies that are specifically targeted to those groups?
In the sense, because above and beyond economics, when you have blatant discrimination, that is impacting the black community. So what we have to focus on in terms of healthcare, in terms of housing, where you have redlining, you got to end redlining. You need strong, fair housing standards. In black school districts all over the country, they are underfunded. That impacts directly the black community, and we make sure that there's equal funding, not only equal funding, more funding for those distressed communities that are black. So to end the racism that exists in this country all across the board, whether it is in housing, whether it is in criminal justice, for God's sakes, that would be the clearest example. According to the studies that I have seen, the white community and the black community smoke marijuana in about equal levels. And yet blacks are 6 times more likely to be arrested. Is that a racist situation? It clearly is. So the answer is yes.
And speaking of, criminal injustices that we always have to face, mass incarceration is a big problem in our communities. And there's been so many times where we wanted to get people out. We were talking about yesterday how people just don't have bail money. People just don't have the access to resources that will level out the playing field. So what are some of the ways that we can fix the mass incarceration that our communities always have to
I'm working with, you guys know Sean King.
Of course.
Yeah, Sean has been active on the campaign, and he has been very helpful in guiding me on these areas. You raised one issue, which, again, I'm a United States Senator. I should have known this. I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, and I wonder how many of the viewers know this. And that is today, this is unbelievable. We got about 2 million people in jail in America, which is more than any other country on earth, including China, if you can believe it, okay? 20% of those people, 400,000 people, are in jail right now. Do you know what their crime is?
Is it weed, marijuana?
No, their crime is that they're poor.
Oh, they have enough
They
money.
can't, that's what you said. They don't have cash bail.
I think it's actually 80%.
No, it's 20% of 2 million people. It's about 400,000 people, to the best of my knowledge. Okay. So these are people who are arrested, not convicted of anything. Okay, they're not convicted, but they can't get the $500 they need to get out of jail. That's insane. That's like a debtor's prison.
Right.
You would not think we have that in 2019. We're going to end cash bail. Okay?
Completely.
Yes, absolutely. There are ways to make sure that people come back for their trial, and you don't have to keep them rotting in a jail cell. Okay, so that's number one. That significantly reduces the jail population, like 20%, tomorrow. Second of all, most importantly, I think, we have to ask why we have so many people in jail. And a lot of reasons for that. But one of the main reasons is we are not investing in our young people. All right, we're not investing in job training, and we're not investing in education. And we leave too many kids falling through the cracks who go out on the street and say, the only way I can make money is doing something illegal, all right? And they end up in jail. We can have a profound impact as a nation, and we are a rich enough nation to be able to do that, in which we are going to say loudly and proudly that no child will fall through the crack. We're not going to let you drop out of school. We're not going to let you just wander and end up in jail. We are going to train you to get the jobs that you need. If you need, mental health counseling, we're going to provide that to you. But you ain't going to fall through the crack and see your life destroyed, okay? That is enormously important. So we invest in jobs and education rather than jails and incarceration. We don't need more jails, all right? But we do need to make sure that our kids are getting the education and the job training that they need.
I'm glad you said that, because there's a viewer question that pertains directly to that. Tara Charmaine wants to know, do you have any plans to fix the Flint water crisis? There was another piece of that question, but the other part of it was about HBCU, investing in HBCUs. Okay. So actually, why don't we do the Flint water crisis part first? Because there are parts of Flint that still don't have clean water.
I know. I was there. I was in Flint a couple of years ago. I returned to Flint. And of all the meetings, and I've had 1 million meetings in my life as a senator and congressman, mayor, I don't know that there was ever a more painful meeting that I had without any media there, just in a quiet room with parents of children who were impacted by the Flint water crisis. And my wife literally had to walk out of the meeting. She couldn't deal with it because you're dealing with parents who are talking about their kids who are normal, healthy, happy kids, suddenly, dealing with very serious problems. Yeah. And to hear parents talk about that for their kids. The answer is we need to rebuild our infrastructure entirely. Flint is the worst case. It's the canary in the coal mine, but it is not the only community. So, of course, we have to rebuild the water system in Flint. I think they have been making some progress. They're not where they should be. And we have got to do that all over this country. You would think that in America, when you turn on the water faucet in your house, that the water you would drink would be healthy, would be clean. It is not. Yeah. I didn't know this also. You go to California, there are thousands of folks, they cannot drink water out of their faucet. You go to Des Moines, Iowa, the water tastes terrible. You know why it's terrible? Because they have to put all these chemicals in it to deal with the pesticides that come from the farms. So we got a major problem in this country, and that's why we have to rebuild our infrastructure, including our water systems. I want to get back to criminal justice though for a second. 4 years ago, I talked about decriminalizing or legalizing marijuana. And 4 years ago, that was seemingly a radical idea, because if you're going to talk about criminal justice, we got to end the so-called war on drugs, which has hurt so many people, especially in the African-American community, okay? And the good news is, A, we're making progress state after state, including Vermont, has legalized or decriminalized marijuana, and some communities are now expunging the records. If you're arrested for marijuana, that record is being expunged. And that's what we have to do nationally, in my view. So there's a lot to be done on criminal justice, and I think our agenda speaks to that.
Before you go, I have one more question for you. It's about the dominant critique, perhaps, of your politics, which is that you have economic solutions and class-based solutions across the board for problems, and that sometimes those problems, not all problems, can be addressed in that way.
Yes.
That certain things are simply race-driven. For example,
that's right.
Black women's mortality rates during childbirth, as an example.
Right.
When you look, whether you have a high school diploma or not, when you look across class, Black women are dying at astronomical rates.
Yes.
Do you have policy that addresses issues that aren't purely a kind of across-the-board class-based solution, and specifically with regard to that issue? Like, that might be a great example.
Let me give you an example. The answer is yes, and you're absolutely right.
Could you answer the one about Black women in particular, though? I think it'd be helpful for our audience.
Okay. It is insane that in the United States in 2019, a Black woman giving birth is, if I'm not mistaken, 3 times more likely to die than a white woman. That is third world stuff. I mean, that is not the United States. So it means that when we talk about Medicare for all, which is significant, it means we pay a special attention to those communities, i.e. the African-American community, that have been hardest hit by our disastrous healthcare system. Infant mortality rate 2.5 times as high. Now, I learned something. A couple of months ago, I was sitting down with some students from Howard University, and we were talking about education and student debt. We've gotten to the issue of healthcare. Listen to this, and I didn't know this either. One woman says, you know, my mother hesitates to go to the doctor because she feels that the white doctor is really not understanding her problems. Right. And I see you nodding your head. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay? I didn't know that. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that we need more black doctors. It means that we need more black dentists, more black psychologists. And that gets us back to the whole issue of making...
And white doctors to be
less
yes. racist, right?
Yes. No, we need more doctors in general. But I think the African-American community, as is natural, feels more comfortable. You're going in, you're like, you know, not that you're not going to go to a white doctor, or that a white person's not going to go to a black doctor, but people feel more comfortable. And I didn't fully appreciate that. So we need ways that we can do that by expanding the National Health Service Corps, and dealing with education.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And the hospital funds, I love the way that like Elizabeth Warren's plan was a little bit more about like if your hospital is able to get these rates up for black women who are healthily getting through the birthing process.
Economic incentives.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
Right.
So
Senator Sanders, we know you have to run, but we are grateful for your time today.
I'd love to do this again.
Oh, you're absolutely going to come back. Maybe you'll come back in the general election.
Hey, I love that.
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see. All right. Thank you very much.
Everybody, I'm sorry.
I think we have to play a game.
We do have time.
Go.
Oh,
One
God.
more game.
Now you're making me nervous.
Okay.
All right.
I thought you had to go, but if we got time for the game.
One more game, is it? Because we get to hear you talk about policies and all
All
that
right.
stuff all
What's
the
the game?
time.
All right.
It's called One Gotta Go. And you might not know this one because it's a popular Twitter game. Basically, we're going to give you 4 options. It's going to be a very tough decision. One has to go, and you have to explain why that one would have to go. All right?
Donald Trump's not an option.
That's the ultimate gotta go. But let's see what the options are. Romantic films is the category. Dirty Dancing, When Harry Met Sally, Pretty Woman, or Ghost. Which one of the 4 are you taking? You just don't need to have in your life.
Get rid of Pretty Woman.
Get rid of Pretty Woman?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you
You
why.
got to tell me why. Because big mistake.
No.
Huge.
No.
Huge.
No. I like that movie, but it kind of romanticized prostitution a little bit.
I mean, that's not a lie.
Hey, it's labor. All labor is labor. But okay,
Hey!
I'll accept as for a presidential candidate, Pretty Woman being eliminated. I would have eliminated Dirty Dancing. I would have eliminated Dirty Dancing.
I tell you what, Harry Met Sally, I thought was a brilliant movie.
Yeah, it was.
Do you tear up when you watch it?
Well, it started at the University of Chicago, so I saw the campus there reminded me.
He's biased. He's like me with DC.
Yes.
I would remove Ghost. Though I love Whoopi, those other ones are just really.
Ghost has the Righteous Brothers. It has that wonderful scene where they're making clay and or whatever, the pottery or whatever.
Scene. But I also love The Lift, Dirty Dancing. Pretty Woman was just. I mean, it's just one of those films where it's just like, oh.
Understood.
Like, it just aged really well. Like, you can literally turn on the TV right now and watch Pretty Woman.
That's right.
But I wouldn't want it. This is a one
They're
gotta
all
go
good
that
films.
I really, wouldn't want to choose.
Films.
They're all good
Yeah.
films. That's a presidential answer.
There it is.
They're all good films.
They're all good
I love them all.
All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
it's been
you
an
so
absolute
much.
pleasure.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure. And make sure you stay with us. Thank you for watching this episode of Black Coffee Live. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BET Black Coffee so you never miss an episode. Did you see our conversation last week with Representative Ilhan Omar? Yeah, you should watch that and then rewatch it. Hit the like button. Watch another video. Then watch Senator Sanders. Hit the like button on that. You get the plan here. So then you go to Facebook and Twitter and you watch us there every day at 10 a.m. Eastern. Next, we're going to keep the conversation going on Twitter on our after show. It's called Black Coffee, The Refill. Stay right here with us.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.